this video I'm going to be talking about writing to argue and persuade in the GCSE exam for English language. Now I want you to think about, when was the last time you had to persuade someone about something? I'm sure it could be anything from which TV programme to watch, what you wanted for Christmas, getting permission to go somewhere, do something, maybe convincing a friend to join you. We all use persuasion every day. But when we're actually writing in persuasive ways, we need to remember a couple of key things. First of all is the purpose, why we're writing, and an exam writing task will give you a purpose and an aim that you need to achieve in the piece of writing. You need to think about the audience who you're writing to, and the language. What kind of words would you need to use? What kind of tone? Is it formal or informal? And what kind of techniques do you need to use to persuade someone? Finally, there's the layout, which is the type of text that it is. It could be a letter, an article, a leaflet, a speech. All of those are different types of writing, and it's going to look different on the page. Now, with writing to persuade, you need to think about how to change the way someone thinks. So when you are writing, everything is going to be targeting, conveying your viewpoint and getting the listener to agree with you. Now, that's going to mean that you're going to need a good structure where you deal with ideas one at a time and you give lots of convincing reasons why the person should agree with you. You'll also need to use counter arguments where you refer to something that someone on the other side might say and then smash it down and prove why you're actually right. It's good to use the present tense to argue and use personal pronouns such as you, we, us to make it personal to the reader or to the person who's listening if it's a speech. You want to use lots of techniques like repetition, rhetorical questions, anecdotes, referring to real life stories, maybe even using celebrities to reinforce your viewpoint. And you might want to use facts and statistics to ultimately underline your points with some cold hard evidence. You're also going to want to use emotive language where you are trying to get an emotional response from a reader, and you'll be crafting that emotional response with the language that you use. So here's a sample task where we're thinking about writing a speech to be read out in assembly to your head teacher, where you're going to argue the case for better conditions for students in your school, and you might want to specifically choose something that you want to argue for. I'm going to give you an example, which is banning homework. Good morning, Mrs. Smith and all students here today. What is the one thing that all students want to see eradicated from the face of the earth forever? Something that would massively help our well-being and improve our quality of life. It's simple. Ban homework. Now, before you brush this off as a ridiculous notion, consider this. A teachers group, yes, teachers, not students, is calling for kids to do less homework because it makes them stressed and unhappy. And I'd like to suggest that this perhaps applies to the teachers as well as the students. Who likes marking anyway? Perhaps this sounds like a get-out clause for teachers who want to reduce their workload. However, it might surprise you that well-qualified experts support this idea too. Mary Bousted, an education specialist, announced, "I think a lot of homework is a waste of time, set only to meet government targets." Homework especially puts lots of stress on poorer children who might not have as many books and computers at home, she added. I'm sure you can remember being at school and being given a completely pointless homework assignment, tick box exercise. Annoying, right? Or at the other end of the spectrum, being in a situation where suddenly, without warning, several teachers give you a huge project to complete in a few days, all with the same deadline. Compile a scrapbook of your life story, RE, create a booklet on the rainforest, science, and write a short story about a time you got lost in a supermarket, English. The ideal recipe for a total Year 7 meltdown. You know, technically, the government says teachers don't have to give homework, but they are encouraged to set it. The Department for Children, Schools and Families says homework helps children and young people develop their learning skills. Oh, and it makes a difference to exam results. Did I mention that? But there's no doubt that in some cases, by setting ambitious tasks that require equipment and expertise, homework sets some students up to fail. If you're serious about reducing inequality and creating a level playing field for your students, I think you should consider my proposal to ban homework. While you're at it, you can tell my maths teacher I'm not handing in the latest worksheet as a protest until my views are heard. Or the dog ate it. Try to think about what makes a speech successful. If you're writing a speech, it needs to have the right kind of language. It needs to argue a case and it needs to persuade your listeners. You always need to come back to why you're in the right. You need to use a range of techniques to make the speech interesting. You might want to use humour as well. A bit of humour, used lightly, can give a good emphasis to certain points and also make the overall message more palatable to the hearer, especially when it's something they may not want to hear. Don't forget your connectives to link ideas together, and don't forget to plan your writing really carefully before you put pen to paper, and that way that'll avoid repetition or a very insecure argument that ping-pongs back and forth without much direction. So go on and think about what you'd like your head teacher to change in your school, and then start writing your own speech using as many persuasive techniques as you can to convince them that you're in the right.
Hit subscribe if you'd like to follow my vlog for more updates on teaching, reading and studying.